Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Paigncast. This is a podcast where we shine a light on the people that brighten up our city. I want to thank you guys for coming back. We had a long delay. We have baseball practice that has been happening right now, and I don't know, is my son on the Montreal Expos? Why do we have 4 games a week? It has prevented me from doing this podcast, but baseball season has come to an end. It has been a great time. And we are back, so thank you for coming back and checking it out. We've been selling t-shirts. I shipped a whole batch last week. This is for you. That's for you,
Come
buddy.
on, baby.
Yeah, you take that with you. If you guys would like a shirt, hit me up. Happy to send one to you. So anyway, shirts went out. I have some a feedback spotlight because we've been doing this podcast. We've had 5 episodes now, and was able to get some feedback. So this one comes from Jason Defoe in Washington. He has said, the podcast is insightful and educational, but I wish there was an audio option only, as I'm sick of looking at Austin. So shout out to Jason.
Oof.
He's my friend, and Jason, that was helpful and a little hurtful. So anyway, but we are going to take that feedback, and we're going to see what we can do for you. Without any further ado, I want to introduce my guest. He is a guy whom I have known for the majority of my life. We grew up in the same town together, and he owns and operates New City Church here in Champaign. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Nick Volkening. Nick, thank you for doing this with us today, buddy. Appreciate you coming by.
Genuinely honored to do this. I feel like a local. Like if I get to be on the Paigncast, I've hopped over that line.
Dude,
so
I'm so glad you're here. Before we jump into it, plug and promote anything that you've got. Tell us where people can find you.
Absolutely, yeah. So my personal socials, Volkening93 on Instagram, is going to be a bunch of pictures of my kids and things that I'm grilling. So if that sounds remotely interesting to you, hop on over. As far as New City social goes, everything is New City CU. So Instagram and Facebook is where you can find us with all that stuff.
Sweet. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know that you won't... you're not going to give yourself the props on what you guys have done for our city, so I want to take a second to do it. New City has done some really nice things, and some of the things that I have seen you guys do is I loved the food box giveaway. You guys were giving away food to some of the people that were food insecure here in the area, and even in that same vein, New City made a really nice donation to the Feeding Our Kids campaign that I had set up that goes to food insecure kids that were dealing with being away from school and needing to be fed. And that's like, for a lot of those kids, going to school is their main source of nutrition. And you contributed to getting some of those kids some food while they were kind of dealing with the pandemic and they were out. So kudos to you. I wanted to give you a shout out on that. It was very, very cool of you.
Thanks,
very impressive. So well done there.
Yeah, it was our pleasure, my man. One of the things that has been kind of a guiding principle for me in planting the church and even personally, sorry if I cough a few times. I got some allergies, so no COVID business.
You've heard it here. No COVID.
No COVID. Yes, mark that down. Something that's been guiding for me through this whole time has been Jeremiah 29:7, which says, to the people of God, seek first the welfare of the city, and in it you'll find your welfare. And so for us, we're just going, man, how can we bless? How can we come alongside? How can we encourage the people in our city in a time that, you said it, like a ton of food insecurity, ton of discouragement. How can we step into that space and serve people? So I'm glad that, it made a difference in somebody's space.
Yeah. So I've known you for a long time, and I want to get into how you've got to Champaign and New City and how you got into ministry.
Yeah.
But I have known you for, it has to have been 25 years now, right?
Bro,
I would say close to that. We've known that.
Literally almost my entire life.
Yeah, long
known
time. Because we did Cub Scouts and stuff like that together. Right. Our moms were friends. I remember seeing you around all the time at the house because you were in the same grade as my little brother.
Absolutely.
And I can remember you, and this was always my opinion of you whenever we were kids, because I can remember you always being smart. You always had a quirky sense of humor. And again, you can tell me where I'm wrong on all of this.
Hit me.
I always thought you were a very smart kid, smart beyond your age. And I always loved your quirky sense of humor and your confidence and comfort within who you were. That was something that was noticeable to me. At least it had the appearance of it whenever we were kids. You seemed like a kid who was funny, knew he was funny, but was also humble within that, to be like, I'm funny. I'm not like weren't parading it around. You weren't trying. It was such an ease for you. And it seems you just seem so confident within yourself. And that was always kind of my impression of you as a kid. Am I off on that for who you were?
Super interesting. It's funny you asked that because I was going to ask you, I was like, what was your impression of like 5-year-old Nick Volkening?
Yeah.
What was he like? And I think it's funny you bring those things up because like high intellectual, that kind of stuff had been stuff through the years that I kind of prided myself in. And it's been an interesting part of my story of just like I think I probably presented very humble as a kid, but I don't know that I really was. I probably thought I was kind of a big deal at the time. But yeah, man, I think it's funny to me, like you remembering me as like very confident in who I was, because I remember being a nervous wreck all the time, 100%.
That's so funny.
And I think that was part of like my shtick, right? Was like presenting very cool, almost borderline, maybe aloof, like too cool for school. I don't care. That kind of vibe. Yeah. And for me with you, I was thinking about this on the way over here. I remember like, cause I literally probably met you a 5-year-old kid or something like that. And I remember you very early. I was like, that is the coolest person I have ever met. And I'm not exaggerating. You were one of my good friend's older brothers. So there was like this mystique, and watching you had like this floppy 2008 kind of hair going on. Yeah. And I was in. Big fan from the beginning.
Oh, man. See, I think the difference I would say between you and I, aside from the fact that you were, I think also, even though I was an older brother, I think that we were on the same intellectual level throughout most of my life. But I also don't think that I had near the, I don't even know that I was trying to be humble in my, in just my whole approach.
Well, whatever you were doing, I was super into it at the time.
You're a shoe-in with younger brothers. Like, if you are having that older brother, just like, this guy knows everything. The older brothers were the old Google.
That
was the thing. Before you had smartphones, if you needed an answer, you went to your older brother.
I don't know which is more dangerous, actually. Like literal Google or like your older brother teach you life. So
yeah, I had none.
We
of
survived
the answers.
it, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. It all ended up being fine. So, this is something I wanted to ask because we both have roots in Saline County.
Yeah.
I haven't been back in, it's probably been a couple of months, but every time I go back there, I feel this nostalgia, right? Because it's changed. And you're driving these back roads and you're seeing these houses and these places and these different sites, and you feel these feelings whenever you pass through Saline County, because we're both here in Champaign County now. What do you feel when you kind of go through there?
Yeah, I think I resonate with that feeling of nostalgia in some ways. Certainly, it's interesting. Because you're right, it has changed. It is different. I think things feel smaller than I remember them. So, like when I drive through Galatia now, like it feels like a tiny town. Yeah, and it was a tiny town, right? But it was like when it was kind of all I knew, and it was where I grew up. It was like riding my bike down Church Street to the Beaty's house was like, I might as well have been taking a cross-country road trip, that kind of feeling, So, yeah, I definitely feel that bit of nostalgia. I think I have a ton of warm feelings toward where I grew up. Like I had, in a lot of senses, a very idyllic childhood where I grew up. So, a ton of joy. I like to get back. I think that's one of the adjustment pieces for me is like when the Shawnee National Forest was kind of on our back doorstep. It's like, there's so many places like get outside, do that kind of thing. And so growing into sort of flat central Illinois where it's like we got one hill and we made it. Like it's not even a real hill, So getting used to that I think has been different. So we really love to get back. I still go back and hunt down there a few times a year, and it's great. It's a good place.
I have so much. There's still so many people down there that I love. Whenever I go visit Saline County, and people that I would love to be able to hug more than I get to right now. And, but it's funny to talk like now that I've moved away for a little bit. I totally agree. Whenever it's like you go back and you realize kind of just like the little town that it was that when we grew up there.
Yeah.
And now that we live here in Champaign, there's more than one gas station.
That's right.
There's more than one.
And the
Mexican
same guy
place.
doesn't own every gas station in like all
Exactly.
10 towns.
It's so funny. I have such a special place in my heart for Saline County, and it always makes me happy to go back there and visit and see the people. And it's changed though, because it seems like like a lot of the coal mines and stuff have kind of shut down, right? Like that was more bustling industry. So it's a place that's dear to my heart. And,
Absolutely.
I hope that there can be more things that kind of pop up there.
Me too.
I want to know, tell me, because again, we grew up in Saline County,
Mm-hmm.
known you a long time. How did you end up finding your path into the ministry? Take me through that, and then take me how it ended up, you finding that path and how it led you to Champaign.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, it was kind of a long evolution, obviously, as everybody's process or story is. But for me, in those younger years, like I said, I really prided myself on like the intellectual pieces, and like those don't always get put in the same bucket. Like intellectual and Christianity, people don't often think of those two things together. But so for me, like I grew up Christian parents, kind of have a background in some of these things, but started attending church when I was like a teenager. We were kind of regularly in church. That was a pretty normal rhythm for us at the time. And so for me, I'm trying to put all these pieces together of the things that really matter to me. So had this encounter with Jesus where he radically changed my life, how I saw the world, all these things. And so got this intellectual piece. I'm falling in love with Jesus, want other people to know him. And so I'm going, man, I think the road is like, maybe I'm going to be a professor, or I read the word theologian, like somebody who thinks about God, talks about God. And I had never heard the word out loud. So I read it and I was like, what's a theologian?
Yeah.
Like, how do I be that? I didn't even know, like, I didn't even know what it was really at the time. And so I started thinking through these, and I'm like, man, maybe I'm going to be a seminary professor. And all the while I'm like obnoxiously, in a sense, I mean, every teenage boy is probably a little obnoxious in their own right, but I'm like in Galatia High School, and I'm making my rounds trying to introduce everybody to Jesus. We're like, I'm rallying people. We're throwing these pancake breakfasts, talking to people about Christ. And so in all of that, and I have these men who are pouring into my life, all these different things are kind of colliding into one spot where I'm going, oh my gosh, like I love people. I want people to know Jesus. And so I'm going, maybe I'm not just a seminary professor. Maybe I'm not an idea guy. Like maybe I want to kind of lead where the sparks fly. And so I remember sitting down with a guy named Tim Bueller, who was my youth pastor at the time in Marion. So we went to church in Marion, like 30 minutes from where we grew up, if you're listening in. And I sat down with him and I was like, I keep hearing this language of being called to ministry. I don't know what that means, right? What is that? And I can remember, those moments where like it's a significant moment. You can remember the smells. You remember what you were wearing. This was one of those moments for me. I was wearing this brown shirt that I thought I looked very good in. I remember that. I was like, this is the money shirt. When I see that come out of the dryer, I'm like, this is the one. Yep, this is going to be a good day. And so I went and met with him. I was like, hey, what does that even mean? And his response was, hey, if you can do anything else, do it. Like if you can, like in good conscience, without feeling this weight on your soul, like go start a business, be an entrepreneur, all these things.
Else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go do it. And if you can't, that probably means you're called. And so I was like, okay, well, I think whatever that is what I think I'm experiencing. And so fast forward a couple of years, at that point it was like, okay, I know ministry of some kind is going to be their trajectory. Was part of, at that point, something called church planting, which for friends listening in who don't have church background, not familiar with Christianity, is basically like the entrepreneurial side of the church world, of starting new works, often in places that like people aren't just like banging down the doors trying to go to church. And so I was part of planting a church in Marion, Illinois as a teenager. Was a kid, was around. And it's like, man, the experience of just soaking up, watching other people who were really good at their craft and really good with people was just, one of the most formative experiences of my life. And so Fast forward a couple of years, went to SIC Junior College in Saline County, which I loved.
Yep.
And fast forward, it was time to finish undergraduate, and I end up moving to Edwardsville to be part of planting another church. And so this thing is getting in my blood where I'm like, a few years before, I'm like, I didn't even know this existed, like church planting as a category. And I was like, man, maybe this is where all the things that God has made me, an intellectual who likes to talk to people who don't think the same way that I think.
Sure.
A guy who likes to pastor people and shepherd people through difficult moments in their life, and a guy who has just this sort of entrepreneurial kind of starting bent. It was like all of those things collided and was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm a church planter.
Right.
And so I got married while I was in Edwardsville, finished undergraduate, got married, went to seminary during that time, was serving on staff at the church that I helped plant. And then it became very clear, like, that I was going to be the lead guy in the work of church planting. There was a time where I was like, man, am I just going to be like a developer who helps other people do this? Sort of an incubator for church planting, or am I going to be the guy who goes? And once we felt this sense of clarity that God was saying, no, y'all are going to go. We knew we wanted to plant in Illinois. Everybody said we were nuts for doing that, right? Everybody's like trying to get out of Illinois.
Anywhere, right.
And I'm like, let's strap the guns on, man. Like Illinois, ride or die.
Sure.
And so we knew we wanted to plant in Illinois. We wanted to plant in a university city because we just love the next generation. We just like being around them. They're ridiculous and fun. And there's just this life-giving passion for us that the next generation has. And so we started visiting towns, started visiting cities. I thought we'd end up in Carbondale because that's right by where we grew up. So I'm like, immediately know people, all those things. And man, another one of those, like, I remember what I was wearing, smelling, all that stuff. We drive into Champaign for the first time. And I...
just to check out the city?
Just to check it out. Yep. So we're here for the first time. And Aaron and I park right off of Green Street. And we get out of the car and start walking down the street, and a class lets out. So we're on campus. And thousands of college students come rushing out. And I'm walking down the street, and I don't recommend walking and closing your eyes, but I did it. And so I closed my eyes, and in the span of 30 seconds, I hear no less than 5 languages spoken. And there's something about that, man, God just stirred in my soul of like, this city is such a unique place. Like, there are all kinds of people in this city. Like, the nations have literally like moved to Champaign, Urbana and called this place their home. And so I'm hearing that, and man, it was like this convalescence of, you remember this sort of developer, entrepreneur kind of a guy who moves to this or who's experiencing this city that's filled with entrepreneurs and makers and creators and the next generation. And it was like, it was this aha moment for me where it was like, oh, you're not generally called to church planting. You're called to plant this church to reach these people in this city at this time. And so, man, we are so honored to be here. We're honored to call this place our home. And bought a house in Urbana. And so, August of 2019, we moved here to begin the work of planting. And it's been a ride, man. Yeah,
that's awesome. And it's been fun to watch, right? It's been fun to see you here and getting this thing up off the ground. Because I can remember you talking to you whenever you were still in Edwardsville and being like, hey, we're coming. Like, we're going to be here soon. And it's exciting. And it just, like, the fortitude it takes to pack up. You don't know a single person. I'm the only guy you know here.
That's right.
You're coming to this town. It's like, I know one guy. He does insurance. That's the only person that I really know. And we're going to go here, and this is where we're going to put in our roots. And we're going to start right here.
And man, I just want to honor you. Like, from the beginning of the process, you have been such a like warm and inviting person in this city.
Thanks, dude.
And so, goodness, I remember moving here and with Aaron going like, man, if we can make disciples that love the city the way that Austin loves the city, I will feel like we have done something significant for the kingdom of God.
Nice.
And so grateful to be your friend.
Dude, that means a lot. Thank you.
I mean it.
I love the city too.
I know you do.
I'm passionate about being here. I love. It's just so different than where we grew up. I like the people here. I get to interact with them on a day-to-day basis, and it's not perfect. It's not a place that's perfect. It has work to do.
That's right.
But I'm glad to be here and be a part of it, right? And to be in the mix of all of it, in all of its imperfections, and
That's right.
I think that there's room for improvement and ways to help.
That's right.
So I have a couple of questions that I wanted to basically just kind of like ask a pastor, right?
Hit me.
What is it like? Because it's different, the church landscape, I would think, has to feel different in the age of social media.
Sure.
Right? Everyone's carrying a phone around with them. And with that can be so much good. And with that can be a source of anxiety, a source of depression, all of that. So what does it feel like to be trying to pastor and lead in this age of social media and in this age of smartphone?
Yes, man. It is such a vital question. And it's one that I haven't asked because I'm like always thinking about these lofty ideas. I've asked it because I've had to ask it, because the people that I lead, the people that I serve, are constantly steeped in it. I think something that's been helpful for me categorically is Augustine, one of the fathers of the faith, says the greatest problem of the Christian life is rightly ordered loves. Like, so what you most desire, what you most love is actually the thing that drives your life. And everything that we encounter in a day, whether that's on our smartphone, whether that's on the radio, whether that's the Paigncast, whatever it is shaping our vision of what the good life actually is.
Sure.
And so when I start thinking about social media, it's like, goodness, is there a thing in the world that is shaping people more often than Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and TikTok? So, and so for me, it's like, I think it's this really important space for us to try to give people wisdom on engaging with. I think one of the things that's been most beneficial for my family, my wife and I have had a lot of conversations about social media because I can say this for my wife, like she wouldn't mind me telling you this, that like social media for her has been a great source of anxiety and stress, and it just starts to awake this like comparison thing in you of like, oh man, this person has such a cooler life than I do. And I felt that at different times, and so making sure that as I'm leading people going like, hey, don't let the tail wag the dog here. Like social media has to be a tool or something to enjoy, but it can't be the thing that we allow to shape us to the point where it's like, man, I'm getting like these phantom phone buzzes and I've got to pull my phone out to feel that dopamine hit,
Dude.
And so making sure that we're helping people stay in the driver's seat with it, that's been one. And then the other piece has been for like New City as an organization, how do we use that space of social media that's shaping people anyway as a space of spiritual formation, like a space where people can go and they're like, oh, I'm trying to ask questions about what faith even means for my life. Who is Jesus? Why would I remotely care about following this Jewish rabbi from thousands of years ago? We wanted to be a space where people could come and get the beginning steps of the journey of going, man, how do I peek over the fence of this? We have, we've tried to position ourselves on social media, not as the hero, but more as the guide, right? Of helping people who are trying to figure out their life, who are trying to make sense of their story and their place in this world. How do we help act as a guide for them to say, man, the way of Jesus is good and life-giving. And here's what it looks like to actually say, that's my guy and I'm going to follow him. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have, that's social media is one of those things I can get sucked into. Right.
Yes.
And next thing I know, and I have always like, one of my weaknesses as a man is I have a hard time not getting in a word whenever, especially if I will have an idea and toss it out there and someone comes at me on like Twitter or something like that. I have a very hard time putting that down. and not being like, and next thing I know though, the problem is, or like I'll start reading an article, I can just get lost in it. And that's my biggest problem. And, and my wife will sometimes be like, hey, come back, right? Like, I need you back here. You've been lost in this for a while. And I truly will rely on her in some ways to help, like, pull me back out, because I know myself and I can get lost in it. And I treat it like this adult pacifier sometimes too.
Totally.
Where I go out here and I'm like, well, I'm kind of bored, or like, I don't really feel great. I'll go out here and look around and,
Man, isn't that like, I think losing the capacity for boredom and silence is like actually harming us.
Sure.
Because we just don't. I think that's been one of the unexpected gifts of the pandemic season, even for us, was like that it forced us to get quiet and to have to think about, it's like, oh my gosh, there are existential questions that like actually matter to my life that I got to wrestle with.
Right.
And like, you can only sit on TikTok for so long when you're in stay at home before you got to go, oh my gosh, I just have to sit and be with myself before God and go, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? Who am I? All these things.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the things that social media can kind of keep you away from, is like facing some of like what, and it doesn't even not even religion. It could be like, I am eating too much, or like I am having a hard time dealing with my relationship with this person. And rather than sit and think about ways to fix it, you can easily just be like, let's hop on IG for a little bit and scroll for an hour until I can get my mind off of these things that actually matter.
That's right.
I would think that would be a challenge. And again, I know that it can be a tool and there can be so many good things that come from it, but it can also be, for me, I don't have Instagram anymore. I got rid of it because like I was getting more bad away from it than good.
Yeah. And you were one of my favorite follows too. So at first I was like, I'm bummed I don't get to see funny, ridiculous stuff from Austin. Sure. But then I'm going like, man, that's an honorable move to put something down that you enjoy, to say, man, this isn't serving my life. Yeah.
I wanted to try and take some time away from it, because I could tell that like I didn't like the way that like my mood could be shifted by something that I saw that irritated me from someone I know, or not even, it could be like from a celebrity or someone I don't care about that doesn't know me.
Oh,
and next thing I know, my days off, I'm shorter with my kids, I'm a little bit irritable, and it's like because of this dumb thing that I just brought into my own life on my own.
Yes. Is that not the most frustrating thing, where it's like, this doesn't even matter and it's robbing me of joy?
Yes. Yeah. And there were so many moments of that last year during 2022 where there was like, all sorts of different things happening socially and an election and things like that, where there's all these opinions that are being put out there, and never more than right now, where every single thing that happens, you've got a rush to be able to get that idea out there. And I just realized that my relationship with it was not healthy, and so I had to do away with it.
Man.
What so next question I have for you is like, what vision do you see for our city? Like, in an ideal world, when you moved here, what are you seeing for our city? Because obviously there's issues, right? Like there's,
oh my gosh,
if you're checking out the news, you're seeing stuff about like gun violence, and things like that are hard to kind of like deal with in your head. Like, man, I'm going to raise kids here.
That's right.
What vision did you have for our city? Like when you came here and where you are now and where you were at in your life, what do you see for Champaign, Urbana?
Yeah, that is such a good question. Well, when we tie the vision to our church together with the vision for the city, in saying that we're not just trying to plant a cooler church, we're actually after a better city.
Yeah.
My hope is that if 15 years from now, if 10 years from now, New City didn't make it as a church, that Champaign, Urbana would look around, and even the people who weren't Christians or followers of Jesus would go like, man, I don't know about those Christians and what they believe, but we're going to have to raise taxes because that church isn't here anymore.
Sure.
The way they were serving people, the way they were engaging with the city. And so, man, the thing that often keeps me pressing forward in our city, especially in a season like COVID, all this uncertainty, all this like, nobody knows how to plant a church during a pandemic.
Right.
Nobody knows how to do that.
Yeah.
So you're like, congratulations, you're an innovator.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't sign up for that exactly. Like, I wanted to run the plays I knew how to run.
Sure.
But so the thing that has kept me pushing forward has been the thought of Champaign, Urbana 200 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
It is our city where you mentioned gun violence. It's like, goodness, when I think of our city 200 years from now as a place of safety,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I'm not throwing shade at our city. I love our city.
Yeah.
I don't think most people, when they hear Champaign, Urbana, at least who are in the area, would immediately think of safety.
Sure.
They would think of, I need to keep my head up when I'm walking around because I
Right.
don't know what's going to be going on around me. And so, man, when I think of our city in the future, I think of a place of safety and refuge.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the great redeemable qualities of our city is this entrepreneurial spirit,
Mm-hmm.
this ability to take raw materials and turn what looks like nothing into something. We believe as followers of Jesus that that's actually part of what it means to be made in the image of God,
Mm-hmm.
of God who took nothing and made it into something.
Right.
That he stamped that kind of, like, you look like him in that you've got his eyes in the way that you take raw materials and shape it into something beautiful.
Sure.
And so I think of this continuation of the legacy of our
Mm-hmm.
city of making beautiful things that contribute to the world
Mm-hmm.
in substantial ways. That's
Mm-hmm.
something I long for. And then it's funny, it's like something that is usually your greatest strength. I know you experience this personally, I'm sure. Something that's usually your greatest strength also has the tallest shadow,
Mm-hmm.
also has the most broken piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so that spirit of creating an entrepreneurial, the shadow of that is productivity idolatry,
Mm-hmm.
is pace of speed that no human being is actually meant to engage in.
Sure.
And so when I moved to Champaign, I started to get to know the city. What I realized is one of the greatest needs that our city has is learning how to rest and
Mm-hmm.
reflect.
Yeah.
And so, man, I cannot tell you how many times I sit with people on a regular basis who are these high performers,
Yeah.
like university students who are like, I go to the University of Illinois.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here because I'm a slouch. I'm here because
Right.
I can get after
Sure.
it.
Sure.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
But, man, being able to offer to our city this vision of, hey, what if you were more than what you did?
Right.
What if you're more than your productivity?
Sure.
I think the more people who can experience that kind of freedom in our city, it's not actually going to diminish the contribution of our city globally. I think it's actually going to enhance it.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we come with the message of reconciliation and hope that's found in Jesus, is
Yeah.
we think that that's actually what invites people to real and true rest
Mm-hmm.
that leads to beautiful productivity.
Yeah.
So
No, I love it. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because, like, I love your view on this, and I think that
thanks, man.
what a lot of, like, the stereotypical look of Christians is uppity. You know, I think that a lot of people will look at Christians and think that they're bigoted. Or
Sure.
They look and they see, like, the Westboro Baptist headlines,
Right.
and they're like, "This is what is going on in this
That's
building
it.
here," because that's what I think that's what gets the headlines. What doesn't get enough headlines is all the really nice things that Christians do for the cities and the communities that they live in.
Right.
And that's one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on, because that's not you. I think
Man.
that at your core, what you are trying to do is say, hey, this is going to be a better way for you. This is going to improve you and your happiness and all of these things that weigh you down. Try this out.
That's right.
Give this a shot.
Yeah.
See what it's like. And I think that you do a great job of leading by example.
Thanks, man.
So I think that it's wonderful. Next question I have for you. What advice, and this is the last one I've got for you, but I want to know, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self?
Wow.
Looking back, knowing what you know now, or if it's easier and kind of like, what would you give to someone who's looking at Nick Volkening, who is 16, and they're like, I want to do that, right?
Yes.
So how would you answer that?
Yeah. Such an important question. I wish it were possible,
Mhm.
don't you?
Oh, man.
Like to actually give your
So
16-year-old
much, yeah.
self. But I probably wouldn't have been able to receive it
Sure.
at the time.
Oh, I
truthfully,
was
but
taking no advice at 16.
That's right. I got it figured out. I know what's up. I can drive.
I didn't need
amazing.
anyone's advice at 16.
That's right. I think the main thing that I would want to say to myself is don't rush through the season of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
I think so often what can happen, especially with young people, with driven people, I see this in our city a lot, is that they have such passion for who they're going to be or the impact they're going to make or the thing that they're going to do.
Yeah.
That they just forsake the time of preparing, of seasoning, of apprenticing with another leader or person in their life who can teach them their craft.
Interesting.
And so for me, I mean, I don't regret the way that church planting has unfolded in my life. I'm very grateful. But I think if I could go back, the thing that I would have done more of is slow down and prepare. Like I was so ready to be like, I got to get out in front and be the guy.
Yeah.
And if I could back up, I would go, man, will you just sit and watch the guy?
Yeah.
For longer.
Sure.
Because goodness, there are challenges when you step to the front of organizational leadership that you just have no idea about. When you have, it's like the goose that's in the front of the V, right? They're taking wind that nobody else realizes. Sure. And so, man, I wish I would have gone back. I wish I would have slowed down in preparation. And I think, that's the thing I would say to young leaders or young entrepreneurs who are listening is like, man, how can you embrace the season of preparation right now? Which might mean, hey, frankly, like, hey, just be quiet for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, be quiet for a minute. Learn from somebody else who's doing the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And don't go in trying to change the thing they're doing. Go in and try to learn everything you can from what they're doing. And then you can do it differently later if there's something you want to do different. But for now, be quiet and learn something from somebody else.
It's so hard to do when you have these aspirations and these dreams to be like, you want me to do this slower? Right?
Yes.
Like you want me to go slower towards my dream, and not knowing that in a lot of ways, by slowing down, you can speed it up. You can avoid, like it's such a hard concept to learn and to
that's right.
take in whenever you are a young person with goals and dreams, to be like, take a little bit more time to kind of try and learn here.
As fast and as famous as possible is the natural way, right? It's like, I want to grow, I want to lead, I want to do the thing. And it's like, no, what if your life is actually made up of all of these mostly overlooked moments?
Yeah.
Right? It's like the business that you have, the business that you've grown. It's like people see the fun stuff. They see this, but what they don't see are the thousands of hours of cold calls, the thousands of hours of personal conversations, the hardship of being with families when they've lost someone, but it's all those little moments that make you the kind of leader who can do what you do. So
it's so true. I think about like where I'm at, because I came here, I didn't know anyone here, just my parents. Whenever I moved to town as well, and it's funny how in those moments of hardship and where I am making phone calls at 8:00 at night and Kelsey's putting Nash to bed, right? Like, I'm not home. Dad's got to work. I got stuff I got to do. We got bills still coming. I've got places I've got to get to. Yeah. It's funny, though, how you look back on those seasons of your life fondly, even when it was so hard.
Oh, my gosh.
You look back on those moments of it being stressful, of those moments of it being chaotic. Yeah. And as you get out of it, you look back on it. I still look back on, when Kelsey and I first had Nash, we didn't have money. I didn't have a job. I just graduated college, applying for jobs. She had just left hers, and we moved up. We were living in my parents' basement. I'm thinking, like, I cannot wait until I can provide for my wife and my son, and I will have all of these things. And now, like, looking back, Kelsey and I will still be sitting around, like, after we put the kids to bed, and we'll just talk about how, like, fondly we see that time in our life, that stage, that moment. And I wish that I would have soaked it up more instead of wishing it away and being like, I gotta go, I gotta leave this in the past.
That's right. Oh man, we feel that so regularly. There's this song Aaron and I really like right now. It's like the main line of the chorus is, maybe living poor is loving rich. Like, and we felt that so often early in the early days of our marriage. Just like, man, we're broke. Yeah, we got to split an ice cream. Yeah, right. But man, the treasure of that time of just the resilience it produces in you is so valuable. Yeah,
and I think what you also like kind of learn, and the wisdom that comes with that is the amount of happiness doesn't necessarily come from the point that you're trying to get to. Like, it isn't like, if I get to where I can buy my own house, I will then be happier. But that's not
there's just always another thing.
Exactly. There's always another thing that you're trying to get to. And you kind of realize, like, I was happy just with what I had then, too. You know, I wouldn't say I'm happier now at this stage of my career than I was, day 2 of starting this job.
That's
where
right.
I didn't know what I was doing. I could be fired. I'm not sure if this was the right call or not. But it's still the journey.
That's right.
Is so much fun.
Jim Carrey, I love that he said this too. I think there's something about it. Like he said, I wish everybody could have everything they've ever dreamed of so they would realize it's not the answer.
Yeah.
Like you get the thing and it's like, oh, this is it?
Right.
This is what I've given my life for? Like there's something to that.
Yeah.
I think worth reflecting on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, I appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure,
It has been a lot of fun. You'll have to come back on and do it again.
If you would have had an audio podcast, I would have changed into the shirt. But since it was video, I didn't want to do that to your people.
No, that's fine. Listen, real quick, plug and promote one more time before we get out of here so people know where to find you.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, I am nvolkening93. Just Nick Volkening. You can search me on there. And then all of New City socials are New City CU. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, again, thanks. I totally appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a great conversation. Thank you to everyone who is tuned in for this episode of the Paigncast. We will see you next time.